Good afternoon. In the past 2 years, I conducted a policy study for Ghent University on moving beyond university development cooperation. And in this presentation, I will share with you the key findings and recommendations of this study. It was funded by Global Minds and further coordinated by the Academic Director for Internationalization, Guido van Heilenbroek. And this research was the result of a question and a demand to create a better understanding of how international North-South cooperation currently works here at Ghent University under the auspices of the University Development Cooperation Framework, what the main challenges and bottlenecks are, and what the possible avenues of change could be, and what possible benefits could also come from this. Now, what is this study based on? It builds on both qualitative as well as quantitative data that was gathered in the last 2 years. A great number of interviews took place, which you can see in the table, both with people and academics based at Ghent, but also international partners based in Latin America, Africa, and Asia, and a number of external stakeholders such as FLIR UOS. Also, a great number of internal documents were reviewed, partner agreements, contracts, statistics were used. But more importantly, there was also special attention for two research tracks. First of all, the role of funding, mainly a focus on the Global Minds Fund and how partners, academics at Ghent, experienced this fund during the first 5 years of the program. And secondly, how international cooperation works through PhD trajectories, because PhD trajectories are a large and very important part of international cooperation. 30% of the entire doctoral student body of Ghent University are candidates with nationalities from countries in the Global South. So this is a very important aspect of also PhD cooperation, which is stimulated through this PhD project. So this was very important as well. So what came out of this research? A great number of topics were covered relating to student mobility, funding, PhD cooperation, but also international learning, institutional structures. But a number of 3 cross-cutting debates were also found to repeatedly return across all these different topics. And these debates were characterized firstly by concerns about how power dynamics and structural inequalities between Global North and the Global South shape collaborative dynamics, as well as the production and the sharing of knowledge in local and global contexts, but also a debate on reflections on why change, why do we need to move beyond this framework. And what's important is that many of these challenges and many of these debates also reveal these debates to be connected to 3 main contradictions that are inherent to the overarching university development policy framework on the one hand, and also on-ground policy efforts and practices to establish more reciprocal, equitable, and just collaborations on the other hand. And so for this reason, this report captures these 3 main contradictions in 3 chapters and uses then these very concrete challenges to make it also more concrete. Now, these particular case studies are a bit beyond the scope of this presentation, but I will focus on the main contradictions that came out of this research. So the first of which is a chapter about the dynamics of collaboration. It refers to the long-standing debate a bit on how to facilitate more reciprocity, equitable partnerships in a broader context of global and historical inequalities and power asymmetries. Now, one of the main drivers behind the demand for change and to move beyond the current framework is that historical and global inequalities and power dynamics, in terms of resources, power, knowledge, have a bit of a negative impact on the possibility of partners to profit from a more level playing field that enables more reciprocal engagements. For example, in mutual ownership, to have responsibility and accountability over funding, projects, partnership objectives, outputs, one that enables partners to invest and make equitable contributions, but also gain short-term and long-term mutual benefits out of it, and also learn from each other by sharing perspectives, knowledge, and experience to also jointly to realize all of these joint objectives. And one of the important bottlenecks in this regard, so this contradiction within this framework itself, is that from its very inception, and this framework has never really developed a response to these global inequalities and power asymmetries that creates a more level playing field, and not beyond the traditional donor-recipient relationship, not beyond the paternalistic relationship between a more knowledgeable actor and a partner that requires knowledge, between a developed and an underdeveloped partner, according to the traditional development cooperation framework. And so while it is widely agreed that it's important to recognize and address these imbalances in order to establish more reciprocal partnerships, this also creates a bit of a challenge. With the absence of a bit of a framework that integrates the intersection and has attention for the intersection of these power imbalances in these very specific dimensions of reciprocity. Do we, for example, strive for more reciprocity and equality by setting standards for co-funding, whereby all partners invest equally, or do we look for an approach for more distribution? This requires an approach which looks at the intersections of these imbalances and specific dimensions of reciprocity. The second main debate, or the second chapter, is about producing and sharing knowledge in a globally interconnected world. Over the past years and decades, international policies and discourses have increasingly changed, from speaking about problems of developing countries to speaking about global challenges, global engagements. The Sustainable Development Goals are a case in point. But in this international context, where local realities and challenges across the North-South axis are seen to be interconnected, there is very much the question of how do we then define the role of the North and the South. And here also the findings from the research revealed a bit of a contradiction in the sense that there is a blind spot in regards to a localized perspective on the global North. And the local has always been in the global South. Funding also for research cooperation between North and South often focuses on challenges, regions in the global South. And this unilateral focus on the global South also creates a number of problems and issues. Connects also a bit to an approach whereby North-South cooperation is a bit approached as a bit of a special track in internationalization, administrative structures, funding, but which also impedes a bit of a better understanding of this global interconnectedness, also of local and global challenges across the North-South axis. For example, with the growing internationalization of the doctoral student body, how do we organize and approach these PhD projects, not just as a matter of capacity building for the global South, but also to fully integrate them as part of an opportunity to strengthen the knowledge capacity of Ghent in terms of administration, funding, international cooperation. And for this, a local perspective could very much benefit. Then the third debate and the final debate that came out has to do with the very question, why change? Why do we need to change this overarching traditional framework? And this question is often answered in international literature, but also with participants of the study project by pointing at the continuation of global inequalities and power asymmetries that impact on the dynamics of collaboration, or on the production of sharing of knowledge, such as in the first two chapters. Yet there was also a contradiction in this pursuit to move beyond, not just among the participants of the study project, but also among international analysts in the sense that there is a bit of a motivational or a knowledge gap in the sense of what exactly more equitable partnerships could contribute to the strengthening of the Global North or Ghent University, other than being more inclusive in the spirit of global solidarity. And to a certain extent, many of the reflections that took place about why we need to change or who should benefit from it, who can benefit from it, start from the idea that the Global North, as well as Ghent University, assumes a position of strength, whether in terms of power, resources, academic excellence, knowledge. And so for many in this rationale, changing this position should or is therefore associated with a sense of loss, not with profit. Apart from the idea that if these power imbalances are addressed, everybody wins. But international cooperation was also found during the study project to also reveal a number of internal weak spots at Ghent University. For example, in regards to frameworks for international learning or co-supervision of PhD students between a promoter in the Global South and a promoter based at Ghent University. And so it is the argument of this particular chapter that by tackling these internal weak spots with input from our international partners, this can also further strengthen not only the institutional fabric of Ghent University itself at a local level, but also its position as an internationally strong university at a global level. For example, how do we prepare students for an international, multicultural context after graduation, in which they are conscious about their own position in the world, how they relate to other contexts, academic cultures, regions. And there is an elaborate apparatus, not just at Ghent University, but also beyond, about on funding models, criteria, problem analysis, that facilitates knowledge exchange from north to south more than the other way around. And so this reveals a bit of an internal gap in which a more multi-regional understanding of global challenges and more multi-regional perspectives are also missing. And so we could tackle this also with the input of our international partners, and in this way also achieve direct benefits from moving beyond, or as one of the ways to achieve direct benefits from moving beyond the current framework. Finally, a number of very general recommendations, more specific recommendations, you can find in the final report to be finalized by the end of June, is that first of all, these contradictions are not only found at Ghent University, but they are very much inherent to the framework of university development cooperation, and so they are also relevant for challenges within the sector at large. First of all, in regards to these collaborative dynamics, the intersection between power asymmetries and specific dimensions of reciprocity, a good sound policy framework could help with that. Secondly, in regards to the production and sharing of knowledge in local and global contexts, a more localized perspective also on the Global North requires also university development cooperation to move a bit beyond its special track, which it has at the moment, to interact with more broader approaches to internationalization. And thirdly, a vision to move beyond the current framework requires much more than a desire to increase global solidarity. It requires attention for what also Ghent University can benefit from this change. Attention for internal weak spots that are revealed or become more pronounced due to international cooperation. And in this way, this can also be one way for Ghent University to achieve more direct benefits from moving beyond university development cooperation. Thank you.